You're listening to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stillwell, and joining me after his 21st birthday trip to Orlando is Shane Joseph. Shane, happy birthday, and how are you?
Thank you very much. I'm doing really good. I had a great week, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we got a lot to talk about. You were down there for about a week, and you managed to hit the three mega properties. You visited Universal, you visited SeaWorld, and you even got to a Disney park. But we're gonna start this podcast. I mean, we're talking Orlando this week. The new hotness in Orlando, as it were, is the Velocicoaster.
Yes.
If, in case you've been living under a rock on this podcast, I think we might be the last theme park podcast to talk about Velocicoaster in any stretch of the imagination. But I mean, Shane, without going into too many spoilers, because I've tried to remain as spoiler-free as possible on this, let's talk Velocicoaster. How was it? Is it living up to the hype that everyone is giving it on Twitter?
Yeah, I would say absolutely yes. It is currently my favorite coaster. And I'll say this before we really get into anything. I think that there has to be kind of a conversation with me specifically, like about what I consider the best and what I consider to be my favorite. I don't think Velocicoaster is the best ride I've ever been on, but as of now, the entire experience combined, I would say it's my personal favorite. Again, I'm not going to go into like spoilers or anything, but the theming is really great. The trains, I mean, I'm sure you've seen, look amazing, and they look just as good in person. The entire area where the ride is totally new. Like, it's been completely renovated, and I don't really remember too much because it's been quite a while since I was at Universal. But now, having been there, I kind of can't imagine the area without it. It's so present in the area. When I started to see pictures, I wasn't sure how I felt about seeing Velocicoaster so close to Hogsmeade and like the track almost touching some of the Harry Potter theming. But having been there, it's not as intrusive as I thought, and you can't really see it from Hogsmeade, which is good. But overall, it's one of the better experiences I've ever had overall, and I can't say enough good things.
Yeah, I'm little inside baseball for those of you listening, and because podcasts are an auditory medium, Shane's got his Velocicoaster t-shirt on, so he managed to pick up a Velocicoaster shirt. But
yes,
of the elements on that coaster, and there are many, the Mosasaurus roll over the lagoon is getting a lot of love. But what's your favorite element on the Velocicoaster?
Well, you just mentioned it. That would be the Mosasaurus roll. Maybe my favorite element that I've ever experienced. It's hard to kind of put into detail how it feels, but the only thing I can say is it feels like there's another launch before that Mosasaurus roll, because there's a small like airtime hill or speed hill, and you take that so fast and then get whipped into this inversion over the water. It's unbelievable. Other than that, I think the second launch really stood out to me. I got off the ride the first time convinced that must have been like 90 miles an hour, just because it's such a good boost. Like, you're already having plenty of speed. And then somehow the second launch managed to catch me by surprise every time. It's so powerful. And the coaster is this bizarre combination of very intense while still being very smooth, because obviously it's like brand new. So I'm hoping that it stays like that over time, which I think it will. But again, I can't say enough good things about this coaster. The layout is awesome. The scenery while you're on the ride is so immersive, and it really feels like you're in the middle of Jurassic World.
Yeah. Obviously, you talked about it being brand new. How many times did you ride, and how were the waits? I've seen, on social media, the talk is it's not what Hagrid was. And I mean, partially because they've been doing soft openings for, what feels like months at this point.
Right.
But how long were you waiting? And, what were the crowds like in line?
So I was lucky enough to get on it 4 times. 3 of those times were in the first half hour of the day because I had early entry because we were staying at one of the Universal hotels. We stayed at Surfside over at Endless Summer, which was perfect because when we got into the park, almost every single person there for early entry went over to Hagrid's, and we were part of a smaller group that went to Velocicoaster. So I got 3 rides on it at the beginning of the day. I think 1 in the front and 2 in the back. And then later that night, I got a night ride. And something interesting about the night ride is they turned off all of the lights, both on the train and in the ride itself. So it really was a pitch black ride. I almost would have liked to have the trains on because they're a cool neon blue. But there is something to be said about a total pitch black night ride on Velocicoaster. And the wait times throughout the day, I really didn't see it get over 90 minutes, which is great. And often the posted wait time was longer than what it actually was. So if it said 90 minutes, you might only have to wait 45.
Yeah.
And to the point about Hagrid's, I think what Universal did with this opening is pretty genius, and I think they're going to do it more from now on. Is they essentially opened the ride a month early and just called it soft opening, but that allowed a lot of the enthusiasts and Orlando locals to get on it early, so there wasn't this big rush for opening day like there was with Hagrid's. I actually went to Universal with a few friends who were there on opening day, and they said they didn't wait any more than 2 hours throughout the day for it.
Wow.
So I think if Universal does that in the future, it would be very smart, because you can still kind of have this grand opening celebration day without the crazy rush of thousands of people heading to one ride.
Yeah, I was watching the Today Show on the opening day, and they had Kenan Thompson, and they had Carrie Sanders, who's like their go-to coaster
yes, I saw that.
aficionado for NBC, it feels like. But
speaking of the Today Show, I want to keep on this, but remind me, we got to talk about the Today Show Cafe later at Universal's, because it was amazing. But yeah, anyways, opening, I love the way they did it, and I hope they continue to do it.
Absolutely. Okay, we're gonna stay at Islands of Adventure, and we're gonna talk about the other new to you roller coaster at the park, which is Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure Through the Woods. I mean, there's a lot of words with this title.
Yeah, there is.
You were telling me when we were talking about this episode that you had to wait 5 hours for Hagrid.
Yes.
I gotta hear this story.
Okay, so first of all, I gotta say, I would not, in any normal circumstance, wait over 2 hours for any ride, especially at a resort park. However, this day, there was a massive thunderstorm, and it shut down the entire park. Every single outdoor ride was closed for a good amount of the afternoon. And when this all happened, we were in line. When we got in line for Hagrid's, it was a beautiful, sunny Florida day. But then about 45 minutes later, we were on the inside section of the queue, because there's an outside part and inside part. So we were inside the building, and we heard the announcement that the ride was shut down. So we figured we would stay, just typical Orlando rainstorm. We would wait it out. And then we just kept waiting. We were moving up in the line because so many people were leaving. And we luckily had gotten on almost everything else before that. And since we were so close to the front of the ride anyway, if we left, we would have to just wait in this long line again. And nothing else in the park was open because of the thunderstorm. So we basically had no other choice but to wait in this line. Like, all the other indoor rides were like peaking over 2 hours at this point, which we didn't want to wait because we've already done those. So yeah, we waited 5 hours for Hagrid, and it's tough to say that any ride is worth 5 hours. However, I absolutely loved it. Hagrid's is in my top 10 now. I had not seen any POV of it before, so spoiler alert. I was caught completely unaware. I had no idea this ride had a drop track. I had never experienced a drop track before, and I was so surprised. I just figured we were going to launch forwards again. So I had no clue when that happened. And let me tell you, riding on the motorbike, because the ride we got, I was able to sit in the motorcycle seat. So much fun. Just an incredible ride with a story attached now, which is great.
Oh, yeah. I rode it back in 2019, and I was at the IAPA Celebrates event, and fortunately, I got very lucky. I had 2 rides on Hagrid that night. I got a ride in the front car, and I got a ride in the back car. And
wow.
And this was a night ride, and I tell you what, it is a top-tier coaster experience for sure. You brought up that drop track, and it made me laugh a little bit, because when they were marketing this coaster, they were like, it's the first roller coaster in North America with a drop track, because Busch Gardens Williamsburg doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But I love Hagrid's. I need to get back down to Orlando and ride it, obviously to ride Velocicoaster as well.
Yes.
But kind of sticking in Islands of Adventure, anything else? I know you mentioned it had been 8 years or so, but since you had last visited the park. But was it? What else were some standout attractions in your mind? Did you get on Skull Island, Reign of Kong?
Yes, I did. It was a walk-on, which was great. The queue, I think the facade and the queue in that ride are so impressive. The outside of that ride is just seeing it like from a distance and even up close. It's kind of magnificent how they made it look. And I have done the studio tour at Universal Studios Hollywood, so I've seen the ride before. And unfortunately, when I rode it, they weren't taking us through the outdoor section. So I pretty much got the same ride that I did in California. It's an okay ride. It's a screen simulator on a big bus, which is okay. But I liked it. I thought the animatronic at the end was really great. I was sitting in the seat right closest to it, which was awesome. And yeah, I think the ride holds up well. I wouldn't wait too long for it, but definitely don't skip it if you're going to Islands of Adventure. I would say do it early on though, because that was one that consistently got upwards of 100-minute wait, which I certainly don't think is worth it. So if you can, try to get out early, but definitely don't miss out on it.
Gotcha. And then, the usual suspects, Spider-Man, Hulk.
Yep, good as ever. Hulk, new, retrack. It's hard to tell because I can't really remember how it was before, but I thought the ride was really great. The new inside the queue building is really cool. It's really high tech. The launch tunnel looks awesome from the inside, and you can't beat the headlights on those cars. It really looks great at night.
Or the Fallout Boy or the Patrick Stubbs soundtrack. You can't beat that.
Yeah, the soundtrack was great. I just kind of forgot that the soundtrack was even there, but you can really hear it because some rides with onboard audio, it's kind of tough to hear it. But the speakers are, I think, in front of you rather than on the seat back. So you really get the hype of this music the whole time, and it's a great experience. It really adds to it.
Oh, yeah. And then let's go kind of across City Walk there. We're going to go to Universal Studios Florida. Again, 8 years since you had been there. So you've got attractions like Race Through New York with Jimmy Fallon, which is good depending on who you ask. And you've got attractions like Fast and the Furious, who are not as good depending on who you ask. What were some of your highlights over at Universal Studios Florida?
So, I mean, the big one is Diagon Alley. I visited the park in 2013, so I unfortunately was caught right in between when Jaws closed and when Diagon Alley opened. So I didn't get to experience either back then, but I did this time. Again, with the early entry, we got to go there early, so we got on Gringotts twice with no wait. Another ride that I purposely didn't seek out a POV or anything for, so I was really impressed with it. I think the ride system is a lot of fun. I do wish it was a little bit longer. That's the one thing I got off wishing there was another section or two of the actual coaster. But some of the effects on that ride are really great. I wasn't sure about riding a coaster with 3D glasses, but it wasn't really an issue. Of course, the theming in the queue is excellent. The pre-show room in the elevator is such a cool, fun effect. And the station is one of the coolest stations I've ever seen. I mean, you're in this cave and there's a dual loading track and there's all these stalagmites or stalactites, whichever, hanging over, and just the whole ambiance of the ride and the land as a whole I was really, really impressed with.
Nice. And then another thing on our notes here that you really want to talk about was the new Bourne Stunt-tacular.
Oh, yeah.
You're a bit of a production, I don't want to call you a production geek, but you're a nerd when it comes to stuff like that. And yes. I say this in the most endearing, great way possible. What did you think of the Bourne Stunt-tacular?
Well, so going in, I had never seen any of the Bourne movies. I didn't know much about the stunt show, but during the show, I was absolutely blown away. And it's hard for me to talk about because I would like everyone to know as little as possible going into this show, but absolutely do not miss it. It's second only to Waterworld in theme park shows that I've ever seen. The technology in this show, I have no idea how it was thought of or achieved physically. If technology like that could exist on a dark ride, I mean, it would be the greatest dark ride in the world. And some of the set pieces in the show are crazy. I did ride Terminator when I was there last time, so I was kind of familiar with the setup, but they've got a totally new system in place. You don't need 3D glasses, which is excellent. The performers were top tier, some of the coolest stunts I've ever seen in person, and that's pretty much all I'm going to say about it, but definitely not to be missed. Make it a priority if you're going to Universal.
For sure. Yeah, another thing I really need to experience, and it's been a couple of years since I've been to Universal, and it was pre-Fallon, pre-Fast and the Furious, pre-Born. I mean, I got to get down there. So hopefully this fall I will be able to make that trip.
Yeah, see if you can get down there. It's definitely worth going.
I got to ask, because my personal favorite dark ride of all time is located at Universal Studios Florida, and that's Men in Black Alien Attack.
Yes.
Tell me you got on it. Tell me how much you loved it.
I did get on it, and I loved it a lot. That's by far my favorite shooting ride. I mean, there is so many animatronics in that ride. The one thing I will say, it's very difficult to see what you're shooting at, like where your laser is. That was the one thing that I took away from it. But other than that, it's just as good as I remember. They didn't have, I think there's a few pre-shows. They didn't have either of those running, which was kind of unfortunate. But I do love the queue. There's lots of little effects in there that you can kind of play with while you're waiting. The ride vehicles are so much fun. We spun a lot, which I think means we didn't do great. The score, I can't exactly remember what my score was, but it's such a fun ride. And I hope that it stays at that park for a long time.
I'm with you. Yeah, if you're listening to this podcast and you're new to the show, go back and find the two-part episode that Eric and I did with Dave Cobb, who was the creative director for Men in Black Alien Attack. There's so much good stuff we talked about with Dave, and he's done interviews about Men in Black because it just celebrated its 21st birthday, much like Shane did. But just go back and listen to that episode. I mean, from the Easter eggs in the queue to the fact that, Dave himself voices the alien at the end of the ride that goes, it'll be ready next Wednesday. So it's just, so many good things to say about Men in Black Alien Attack. And then the last question I've got on Universal Studios Florida: did you ride Hollywood Rip Ride and Rocket, and what song did you listen to?
I did. I listened to I Will Survive, much like I did the first time I went, because I was terrified to go on it. Wasn't terrified this time, and I've got to say, it is aside from Velocicoaster and Hagrid's, my favorite coaster probably in Orlando. I feel like no one ever talks about how great this ride is. Yes, it has a lot of brake runs, obviously, but the airtime coming into them and the drops coming out of them are awesome. You can't beat that huge vertical lift, and they take a video of you on the ride, which is just awesome. So yeah, I was really impressed with Rip Ride Rocket.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a coaster that gets, to me, a lot of unfair hate. Obviously, it's from a different time. I mean, different ownership. The park was headed in a different direction. This is back when they were doing Super Bowl ads, giving away free tickets. Like it was a completely different time, but I think it kind of holds up to that its own niche a little bit with the music and the video. And they were kind of this was at a time when everybody was doing the on-ride video cameras.
Yeah.
So it'll always hold sentimental value to me. And it may just be because I can listen to the Muppets when I ride it by using those secret songs.
Yep.
But we're gonna head south down I-4 a little bit.
Okay, before we do, I have a few small things.
Absolutely.
I just took quick notes. Velocicoaster, the locker system. How has no one thought of this before? Double-sided lockers. That's genius. Literally, how has no one thought of that? You go up the stairs to the ride, you put your stuff in the locker, and you come down the other side. There's no clogging in the locker room. It's efficient. The lockers are also located right before the station, so you can have your bag with you all the way through the queue and your phone with you. I can't believe that hasn't been a thing before this, and I think it will probably be a thing on a lot of rides going forward. The other thing I wanted to mention is on the Jimmy Fallon ride, if there's not a wait, you can ask for the studio tour, which we did. They take you a little bit backstage of the ride. They give you some fun facts about the Tonight Show, which is great because I'm a big fan of the Tonight Show. And they tell you some behind-the-scenes facts, and then they let you on the ride at the end with no wait, which was cool. Fast and Furious, I did ride. I'm a big fan of the movies, so the queue was my favorite part of the ride. The ride itself, it is what it is. I it still is kind of confusing to me that you're riding a ride based around street racing films on a bus. But, it is what it is. It's the same thing in Hollywood. And, it's enjoyable. If there's not a long wait, I would say, it's worth your time to do. The new Today Show Cafe in Universal is one of the biggest surprises of the trip because I didn't even plan to eat there. It was just the morning. We didn't have breakfast, so we were hungry. There is so many good food options there, from like breakfast pastries and sandwiches to some great lunch stuff. And there wasn't really a long wait to get in. And the food was really, really great. So I can't say enough about the Today Show Cafe. That being said, though, I would look into the daily dining plan if you're going to Universal. It's only $25 a day, which, I mean, you can't beat that. And I spent much more than that on food a day. So if you don't mind eating, burgers or chicken tenders, that's a good option. And there are other things. I shouldn't say that. There are other options, but there are some specialty stuff too. Like the Jurassic World tribute store was awesome. They had some great snacks in there. I got a amber. It was a jelly that was shaped like the amber and had a little mosquito in it, which was awesome. But if you're not looking to get as many specialty things and just kind of looking more to eat, definitely look into the dining plan. And then the last thing is I ate at Toothsome, which was great. I would highly recommend that, but make a reservation because it was very crowded. So we definitely needed the reservation. And then something that was kind of strange to me is Universal has these very powerful spotlights that shine up from Velocicoaster and Hulk. I don't really know why they exist, but I'm really glad that they do. It's just so cool. Like we walked over to Portofino Bay Hotel at night because I just wanted to see it. And you can see those beams of light from everywhere, including our hotel, which I would highly recommend, by the way, staying at Surfside. It's a great value. It gets down to like $60-something a night when you're there in the off season, which is just unbelievable for a resort hotel that can sleep up to 4 people. I mean, you can't beat that. So those are kind of my quick bullet points about Universal.
I want to add on 2 things since you brought it up. Those kind of behind the scenes, not really behind the scenes tours at Universal. Obviously, there's the backstage tour at Jimmy Fallon, the studio tour, I think you called it.
Yep.
There's the immigration room tour at Men in Black.
I wish we could have done that. The line was too long, but we asked.
It was. I've done that. That is so much fun. But I think they've got them also at the Mummy. I've heard they've kind of got like a production tour there, and then I want to say there's like a Hogwarts tour over at Islands.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
I've heard about it. I'm not entirely sure. There's probably somebody who's in the parks more than us has written about all these articles.
I think the Hogwarts, they just like walk you through the queue.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but the Mummy, they take you down under the launch track, which is awesome. And I really wish we could have done it.
It's all good.
But yeah, definitely ask for those.
Yes. And then, Shane, you mentioned the Jurassic World Tribute Store. If you're listening to this podcast and did not catch our story or our interview with Rob Cometti, yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. He's the director of visual merchandising for Universal Orlando. We did an article last month that focused on the tribute stores and the prop shop at Universal, as well as the new Legacy store up in City Walk. So to learn a little bit more about what goes into those, the process is amazing to me. But be sure to check that out. You can search experiential retail on Coaster101.com. It'll pop right up for you.
I wish that's one other thing. I can't believe I didn't go into the prop shop at Universal. That was like one of my most anticipated things, and we just didn't have enough time. So next time I got to get down there.
It's all good. Okay, now we're going to take a quick jaunt down I-4 to a park you visited for the first time, which was SeaWorld Orlando.
Yes.
Having never visited a SeaWorld park before, I don't think you got down to San Diego when you're out in California, did you?
I didn't. Nope.
So what were your initial thoughts on SeaWorld Orlando?
I thought it was great, especially coming off 2 crowded days at Universal parks. It felt a little more laid back, just because there's not as many rides to do. And also 2 of their rides were closed. Wild Arctic, I think there's an Antarctica penguin ride. Both were closed. Wild Arctic, it looks like won't be opening again, just because the whole building is kind of, they taped over the sign. But other than that, I did get on everything. Loved Mako. Can't say enough good things. Having ridden Candemonium, I get the hype for B&M Hypers. Some great floater on that ride. It's so sustained, and you can't beat those clamshell restraints as well. Kraken was great. Again, nobody really talks about that ride, but we got some rides in the front row that were excellent. It's definitely my favorite floorless coaster. Definitely showing its age in a few places. A little bit rough. Some areas could use a little bit of a repaint maybe, but the ride experience itself I thought was great. Same thing with Manta. The only other flying coaster I've been on is Tatsu. So I was kind of familiar with what the experience would be, but still wasn't fully prepared for that pretzel loop. It's so many forces. I did if you have an Apple Watch, you can get the Ride Forces app, and you can put it on during the ride, and it will show you, how many G's are being experienced, which was -4 on the bottom of that pretzel loop, which feels like an elephant is sitting on your chest.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's wild. But the rest of the park was really well maintained. It hurt a little bit seeing Icebreaker there, knowing that people have ridden it, but it wasn't open, obviously, for us. So I'm definitely going to have to get out there and do that. Journey to Atlantis, another one I didn't know too much about, but very fun. I think we're calling it a coaster.
Yeah, that's a credit.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Fun coaster. Very unique. Some interesting theming in there. But overall, I just really enjoyed the park experience. I didn't feel like I was rushing at any point. I got re-rides on pretty much everything. Rode their kiddie coaster, which I usually never do, but I was the group, so I did get that credit this time.
I love it.
Yeah. So overall, great experience.
Yeah, SeaWorld Orlando, I love that park, and I haven't been in a couple of years, and I think a lot of times it plays third fiddle to Disney and Universal, and I think that's a little unjust. I mean, each of those parks, they have their things that they're really good at. And the coaster collection at SeaWorld Orlando is probably the best top to bottom coaster lineup there is. I mean, there's something for everyone. I say that not having not been to Islands of Adventure yet. Velocicoaster, Hagrid, Hulk, and not Pterodon Flyers. The Flying Unicorn or Flying Hippogriff, whatever it is.
Yeah, yes, Flight of the Hippogriff, yeah.
Yes.
They do have Pteranodon Flyers there, too, which unfortunately I didn't get to do because we weren't with any children. But
well, you're 21 now, Shane. You can't be a child anymore.
Yeah, I know.
But I think SeaWorld, they've got a great coaster lineup. I don't know. Did you get into this that new coffee shop they've got near the main entrance?
Yes.
See those models?
Yeah, I did. We had breakfast there. Oh, it's so cool. We were sitting right next to the Kraken model. They're not the most accurate. However, they are so cool, and they're big. I didn't expect them to be as big as they were.
Yeah.
It's so cool just to see. I mean, the regular store, it's just a Starbucks as far as the menu, but the store itself, both the Kraken and Mako models are so neat.
Yeah, I kind of baited you there. I also did an interview with SeaWorld and Chris Gray from Skyline Attractions. And Chris actually built those models. He kind of went into it like the Kraken model. They're a foot wide the Kraken model's 10 feet long, and then the Mako model's like 14 feet long. And he was talking about how he wanted to do these, get some signature elements in there. So you've got the camelbacks on Mako. You've got the dive loop on Kraken, or the Emmelman, whichever one it is. Don't come for me, internet. It's fine.
I don't know either.
But the process, he built both those models in like 2.5 weeks. It's insane to me to think about that. But
so impressive. We did eat at the Sharks Underwater Grill near Mako. We were at the table right next to one of the shark tanks, which is so cool. So definitely, if you have some extra time in the day, even just to walk around in there, it's so cool. And definitely, if you can eat there, see if you can get a table right next to the tank, because it's very cool.
Yes. Well, and if you can't get a table there, you can always go to Silver Dollar City. I hear they have sharks there. That's an extremely niche internet joke. But before anybody comes for us, we're going to go even further down I-4 to the fourth park rather, third resort that you visited your Orlando trip. Another first time park for you. And as a 21-year-old, probably a very exciting park, and that's Epcot.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your day at Epcot. I know it's a park that right now is kind of in flux. It's expanding. There's a lot of construction walls, I'm sure, still around everywhere.
Yes.
But what was your day at Epcot like?
I had a really great day at Epcot, a very busy day. But yeah, just to get that out of the way first, the park is under construction. It's not to a level that's distracting, but it's very noticeable. I can't wait to go back when those walls are down, because there's some great views that just aren't really possible right now.
Mm-hmm.
And similar, except this can be fixed, the barges on the lagoon are huge, and they pretty much ruin any view or any photo that you're trying to get of that lagoon. I don't understand why those aren't put away during the day. They might just be too big. But for a show that's not even testing right now, I was really surprised that those, very large barges were left there. But, those are the only two negatives that I have for the day.
Mm-hmm.
We did get on every ride, and this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, and I know this, but Mission Space may be one of my favorite Disney rides. I know. Andrew just physically recoiled.
Oh my gosh.
It's so much fun. It's so intense. It's very claustrophobic. I don't know why no one ever talks about it. It's the forgotten e-ticket of Walt Disney World. I loved it.
You just your selling points for this ride were it's very intense and very claustrophobic. And
yes, which is not for everyone. But again, for me personally, I thought that was awesome. I love, anything space themed, which was great. I mean, you get to be an astronaut and push a bunch of buttons. I don't know. I thought it was really great. And I had no idea what to expect because everybody always kind of talks down about it. But other than that, Spaceship Earth, again, immediately became one of my favorites. It gave me similar vibes to Carousel of Progress, which I absolutely love. So I really, really enjoyed and appreciated everything that Spaceship Earth had to offer. And it's a very long ride, which is great.
Oh, yeah. Did you, so you rode everything.
Yes.
I want to hear your thoughts on Living with the Land.
Okay. It's fine.
You like Mission Space, but you think the land is shame.
It didn't have any charm for me. I liked hearing about the process, the greenhouse parts were I really enjoyed, but everything inside I just didn't really connect with. I didn't really understand the hype for it, and also, please don't jump out of the boat. I don't know if you've seen this news, but a guest jumped out of the boat and attempted to, or maybe did, grab a cucumber before falling over back into the boat, which there is video if you want to see it. So, but yeah, please stay seated. But yeah, I don't know. It was okay, but I understand why it's always a walk.
Okay, that's fair. I think it's one of those, kind of like you feel with Spaceship Earth. It's an attraction that has a lot of sentimental value for a lot of people.
Yes, yes.
And, as you said, we cannot advocate getting off the boat to go pilfer produce, but to each their own, I guess. Don't do that.
Yeah,
just don't
do it. Just don't. But yeah, it's an okay ride, and I absolutely understand. If someone who, grew up going on that ride, it would definitely have a lot of impact. But for me, someone who, at 21 years old is visiting the park for the first time, I just wouldn't see it as something that I would be returning to specifically.
Okay, that's fair. Well, as a 21-year-old, then, how did you feel about the Frozen ride?
It was fun. It was all right. I have not seen the movie Frozen, which is kind of crazy to me that I haven't at this point. Mm-hmm. There's no reason for it. I just kind of haven't. But it was a lot of fun. I remember being a kid, I always wanted to ride Mouse Room, which was kind of disappointing to me that I never got to ride it. But there's some cool Easter eggs in the queue and on the ride itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of fun. The waits weren't really too bad. I had always kind of heard that was a ride that was always about an hour wait. I think typical was like 40 minutes when we got there, which was okay. But the animatronics in that ride are really impressive. The face projection is a really cool effect, and it allows you to get very close to a lot of the animatronics, which is pretty unique. I don't think I've gotten that close to any other animatronic.
Got it. And then we have to address the 21-year-old elephant in the room. We were talking offline. You did not attempt to drink around the world, which...
No, I did not. There was just too much that I had to do. Okay.
But the drink you did have in Epcot, what did you have?
Oh, I have to look it up because I honestly don't remember. We ate in Italy. We ate at Tutto Italia. I had a great gnocchi there. Also, best gnocchi I ever had is at Toothsome. So if you go there, get that. I know it's kind of off topic, but anyways, yeah. So let's see. I had a Campari and soda, which is an Italian drink, and I looked it up afterwards. It's apparently known as one of the most bitter drinks out there, and I can say that is absolutely true. I thought it was going to be a lot more like citrusy and fruity. It was not. So if somebody with a more adjusted palate were to get the drink, I could see where they enjoyed it. But I unfortunately did not have that experience.
That's fair. Yeah. Shane, we got to go back to Epcot. I'm going to go with you. We're going to go to La Cava del Tequila in Mexico.
Yeah, I got to get something in Mexico. I was disappointed.
That's okay. So we're going to go there. We're going to have one of their craft margaritas, and we're going to show you the error of your ways for having the alcoholic equivalent to a Beverly in Epcot. So
yeah. I did have a strawberry daiquiri at the hotel that night, which was much needed. And it tasted just like one of those sparkling ice drinks, I liked it. So that was good.
Right. There we go. We'll get you there. We're
yes. I'm trying to think what else in Epcot that was notable. Test Track, obviously. Yeah. I really liked it. That was another one where I kind of grew up always wanting to ride. I can't compare which one's better because I didn't go on the older version. Mm-hmm. But this new version is a lot of fun. Unfortunately, on the launch outside, the doors were just always open. Mm-hmm. So we didn't get that kind of near miss effect. But other than that, the outside section is so much fun. And there's some great stuff on the inside with kind of the neon Tron inspired scenery. So I was really impressed with that. I do wish I got a night ride on it, but that's something that I'm going to have to do next time.
Yeah, I like to, my favorite Epcot fad for the longest time, and this is something I heard when I was a kid, and it's just stuck with me. And at least for a little bit longer, this will still be the case. But the second fastest ride at Epcot behind Test Track is the tram to the parking lot. And I know we're not doing this. Trams still aren't a thing yet because of COVID. As we emerge from that, maybe they'll become a thing again. But yeah, that's always been my favorite Epcot statistic, is that the second fastest ride in the park is the parking lot tram.
That makes sense.
Anything else Disney related? I want to get into your resort stays a little bit here.
Yes. Before we do that, one more thing. I really like Soarin'. Luckily, we rode it in a place where the Eiffel Tower looked as it should. Which was great. The smells on that ride are so good. Oh yeah. Speaking of smells, also rode Journey into Imagination, which I wasn't sure what I was going to think of. I didn't really know anything about it going in, but I ended up really, really liking it. Except the part where they spray you with the skunk smell. That was uncalled for. But really liked Figment. The ride as a whole has got a lot of charm. So I had a great day at Epcot.
It used to have more charm.
But
we're not going to talk about that. So you split your resort stays between Universal and Disney when you were in Orlando. You had a couple of nights at the Endless Summer, as you said, the Surfside, right?
Yes.
And then you had a night or two at the All-Star Movies Resort at Disney World. Yep. And these are both considered value properties. Yes. And if someone was looking for the best use of their value for their money, where would they stay, and why is it not All-Star Movies?
Actually, it is All-Star Movies. And
really?
I could not imagine visiting Disney and not staying at a value resort going forward. So it's actually interesting because when I went to Disney a few years ago, we stayed at All Star Sports, which was not renovated yet. However, All Star Movies is renovated, and I did stay there, and I can't say enough good things. I mean, if you're trying to save money, there's pretty much no other option. I had no issues at all, which I really enjoyed All Star Sports too. So this is not a dig on that at all, but just the rooms. There's no more carpet, which is always good at a hotel. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more room because there's 2 beds. I think they're both queen beds. I think they're twin before the renovation too. But anyways, they're queen beds now. One of them folds up, so you can have some space to move around. Which was kind of an issue before the renovation, is there was like one small table and that was it. But yeah, I don't know. I just love those resorts. I think to me at least, are the most Disney of the resorts because they're very bright colors, larger than life characters. And as opposed to staying offsite, which would be cheaper, you get the transportation and early entry, which is, a huge benefit when you're staying at one of these resorts. So it might be a little bit of shock, but I can't say enough good things about the All-Stars. And if you're looking to save money, that's absolutely the way to do it.
You have blown me out of the water with this. I've heard that, the Universal Value Resorts, and I'm sure it's very nice. The Surfside Resort, very, very nice.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that in a minute too, but I was so impressed with that too.
But I guess my question was, like, given the choice, if you could stay at, take the park out of it. If you could stay at Surfside or All-Star Movies, where would you stay?
Oh, that's really tough. Oh man. Probably Surfside, only because the room, there was more space, there was more area in the room. There was a separate bathroom area at the All Stars. The bathroom is right attached to it. At Surfside, there's a little bit of a hallway. And the ceiling, I'm not sure. We were actually on the top floor of Surfside, which is really great. The views of Orlando are really cool from that area. Mm-hmm. So our ceiling was very tall, and just the overall aesthetic of the resort is really great. But that's tough because I was so impressed with both resorts. Okay. And again, if I personally, if I had unlimited money, obviously this is a different conversation. But if you're planning a trip, especially a family trip where, if you have 4 or 5 people, you gotta save some money somewhere. And for someone like me personally, who is only at the resort to sleep, and to eat breakfast in some cases, again, I couldn't imagine staying anywhere except these resorts, just because for what I'm using it for, which is basically just a bed and, the pool at night after a long day at the parks. You can't go wrong.
And a shower, hopefully.
Yes, and a shower.
Okay. Yeah, the last time I was at Disney, I stayed at Pop Century, which, like All Star Movies, has been renovated. And we walked into that room, and I was with my younger brother, and he walked in, and the Murphy bed was up in the wall, and the little table was out. He goes, we're going to need another bed. And I said, watch this. And I pulled the bed out of the wall. So, yeah, I love Pop Century. It's right there by the Skyliner, which is great. And I guess I need to give the All-Stars at Disney another fair shot, because
it's great. Oh, also, All-Star Movies, if you're staying in any of the All-Stars, you can go here. But All-Star Movies has a secret menu in their food court, including a cinnamon roll burger where the buns are iced rolls. So unfortunately, it's not available right now because of COVID and everything. Oh, that's another thing I should mention. Everything at the hotel is mobile order right now, so you can't walk up and order anything. But yeah, I mean, there's some other things, I won't ruin it, because also the way that you're presented the items is very cool. But there's some great things on there, so ask for that secret menu if you go.
I love the insider tip.
Yep.
And then the last thing, I want to talk a little bit, your last day in town, you had an afternoon flight. So you took a bus over to the Magic Kingdom, and you kind of did a little monorail hopping.
Yeah, I did.
How'd that go?
It went really well. I'd never ridden the monorail before, so I basically just went to do that. But it was a lot of fun. I had breakfast at the Contemporary. Again, everything's mobile order, so I got some Mickey waffles from the Wave, and I sat and ate in the Contempo Cafe, so I could see the monorail right above. I would love to stay at that resort one day. If the prices were lower, I would. But just riding the monorail is such a fun experience. And the monorail was actually closed at Polynesian because they're doing some construction on the monorail station. Mm-hmm. So I actually took a boat from the Magic Kingdom entrance to Polynesian, which is such a cool experience. And just walking around Polynesian, I really, really would like to stay there. The vibe of that resort is so cool. And there's literally a beach at the resort, which is awesome. And just everything about it, including the smells, especially in the lobby, was really, really great. And I would love to actually experience it as a guest. The Grand Floridian I also went to. The building is very nice, but it just isn't very Disney to me, which I know is not the point, and it might seem kind of weird since it's literally right next to the Magic Kingdom to say that it's not very Disney, but I don't know if that would be at the top of my list to stay at if I were to pick any Disney resort, just because it's a different environment. It's not as kind of fun as the other resort themes, but it's very impressive. It's a beautiful, beautiful building. I did walk in, checked out the lobby. Very impressed. Tons of glass and chandeliers. So if you can stay there and that's kind of your vibe, go for it by all means. But just the experience of riding the monorail, just because I had some time to kill, was a great way to spend a morning.
Got it. Okay, now the big question. You've got one day in Central Florida. What park are you going to?
Very easy for me. Islands of Adventure. My favorite ride of all time, which is Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, is located at that park. Holds up just as well as I remember. I think there is something for absolutely everyone at that park. I think my favorite water ride, which is Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls, which I will fight and say that it is a coaster. Anyone can come at me about that, but it's got some great water rides. Jurassic Park is there, which I adore that ride, but it is in need of a renovation, not a retheme, but a renovation. You have the thrill rides, Hulk and Velocicoaster, of course. You've got more family rides like Hagrid and Spider-Man, which is one of the great dark rides. Again, holds up so well after 22 years, I think, at this point. Mm-hmm. So there's just something about that park that I absolutely love. And I can't imagine going to Orlando in the future and not making a visit to Islands of Adventure.
Okay. I respect that answer.
Yeah.
For me, I think it really depends. And my goal is to, when I'm down there, always to go to 2 or 3 parks, throw a fun spot in there if I have to. Go down to Legoland. I mean, there's so much to do.
There's so much to do
within an hour and a half of Orlando proper.
Yeah,
I mean,
that is another thing that I liked about it is I got all the experiences done, but there's still more. There's still more that I need to go and do. And I will say, I think, especially if it's your first time visiting the resorts, or at least your first time in a while, the 1 park per day option at Universal, I think, is the way to go. There's just so much to do, and the feeling of having 2 parks to do in one day, I think, would be very overwhelming. So I think just devoting your time to one of the parks each day, even though you don't get the Hogwarts Express, which I do wish I could have done, but maybe next time. So I would say the perfect way to do it, I think, is a 3-day trip, which is 1 park per day and then a park hopper the 3rd day. But if you're going for your first time or first time in a while, I think 1 park each day is the optimal and most stress-free way to get the parks done.
That's a bold take. I'm
always, I know.
I'm always a park hopper guy, and typically I'm rope drop to park close. So we're going to agree to disagree on a lot of topics here, Shane.
Yes. Yeah.
That's another story for another episode.
That's kind of the rundown of my whirlwind trip to Central Florida. I loved every second of it, and I can't wait to go back and do everything that I didn't get a chance to do this time, and do some of the things I did this time again and again.
I love it. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. As always, be sure to check out our website, coaster101.com. We've written a lot about Orlando in the past. Shane's going to have some stuff maybe by the time this episode posts, maybe not. We'll see what happens.
Definitely, yeah.
Also, make sure you're following us on social media. We're at Coaster101, wherever you consume the platform, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, wherever. Coaster101, you'll find us. Be sure you're liking, rating, reviewing, telling your friends, telling your enemies, listening to this podcast on repeat in your car, in your room, wherever you want to listen to this podcast. Really helps people find us. And the more reviews we get, there's some really nice reviews that people have written on iTunes. And if nothing else, we like reading them, so please keep sending them. If you've got any questions, comments, concerns, fan mail, or hate mail, or want to tell Shane why Deadly Do-Right rips off Falls is not a roller coaster, shoot us an email, podcast@coaster101.com. Thanks, as always, to Justin Mabry and JM Music Design for our theme music. They're back in the theme parks this year, which is good. They're up at Kings Island and up at Valley Fair with some shows this season. So if you're up in those parks, be sure to check those out. With that, we're going to close this podcast, but we will talk to you all again next week. See ya.